do y'all want bees? Do you not know where to start? You keep saying every spring, oh, I want to get bees. I want to get bees to help pollinate my garden, help pollinate my food forest. The Kowalskis came down to our Homestead meetup the other day and gave an awesome presentation on beekeeping. It's got all kinds of great information. It's packed full. They're going to answer questions and stuff like that. So if you're scared to get into beekeeping, watch this video and they're going to take you through step by step on what to do and all the common mistakes with it. See y'all in a little while.
Well, welcome everyone, and I'm really bad about advancing the slide, so if it doesn't make sense, tell me to advance the slide. So I wanted to introduce ourselves again. I really appreciated meeting everyone earlier, but I am Barbra Kowalski and my husband Philip. And we do have the blog KowalskiMountain.com and also our YouTube channel, so you can follow us along there. We do have an off-grid homestead. We have 68 acres where we live, and we are milking and raising Dexter cattle. We have pigs and chickens. We do, and see, I'm already doing that. I told you guys it would ding me if I said and I've done it twice there. I can hear the ding in my head. So we like to raise real food. I like to use real food in my kitchen for cooking. I make soap. We do DIY projects, and we are also a modern living homestead. You are never going to see me scrubbing my laundry in a bucket, I hope. So just keep that in mind when you look at us, that we are definitely a modern homestead.
All right, so your question today to all of you is, why beekeeping? If you thought, oh, I'd like to do bees, I want to get interested, I want to help society, I want to do bees, you need to do some homework on it. It's not a cheap hobby, even down to the smallest thing. We are just stewards to them, just make accommodations a whole lot easier to live and thrive. So in doing that, you need to decide which direction you actually want to go. Either you're going to be one that wants it for self-pollination, or you want it for profit and go another route. But you got to decide which way, because there is a split in the road. It'll take you down this way, and this is what you need to focus on. If you're going to go commercial, you need to go the other direction and really focus on it.
So one of the main reasons that people like to have bees on their homesteads is for self-pollination. Now, we do have a large homestead now, but that is not how we used to homestead. We used to live in our suburban neighborhood, and we kept bees on half an acre? Maybe?
At home, acre and a quarter.
No, your mom.
Oh, yeah, half acre.
Half acre there. The one thing about the smaller space, now I'm going to age myself a little bit, but I think I'm in good company here, it's okay. If you remember watching the Jetsons and how the cars would zip up and then they would shoot out, that is what bees do. You'll see them when you're working around them, that they zip up and then they shoot out. And I would watch those bees go right past my garden to wherever they were going. Now, bees can go about 5 miles from your home. So in the United States especially, if you read a label that says that this is organic, they can't guarantee that. Because I can guarantee you that in 5 miles of your house, there is a non-organic farmer in your radius. So it's not legal to label honey as organic here in the US. They can in other countries. But on our own homestead, we definitely see the bees doing their job all over our farm.
So talking about the bees and their flight path and things along that nature, what are some of the things that can provide a profit within beekeeping? Anybody?
Improved crops.
What?
Improved crops.
Improved crops, okay, so pollination. Anything else? What do you think you can make money on dealing with bees?
Honey.
Honey. I actually figured honey would have been number one, first out of the chute.
Beeswax.
Beeswax. What else?
Propolis.
What? The propolis. Why propolis?
It's a medicinal.
Medicinal reasons, right? Why the wax?
Candles.
Candles. Lip balm.
Soap. Lotion.
Soap. Okay. Why the honey?
Delicious.
What kind of honey would you be looking for?
Oh, I don't know. It's just something sweet.
Okay, so what beneficial factor do you think honey has, other than just sweet? Allergies. So it said that the bees within your immediate area, because why? If you're allergic to something, more than likely it's in your general area. And if you, just like a flu shot, you take a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, eventually your body becomes immune to it. Same thing with taking the actual medicine that's prescribed for you. You become immune to it, so you have to change it. So with the pollination process, they're running around, they're collecting up pollen. They're changing it from here to there. They're also going around in the morning and collecting moisture. They're collecting propolis. Making propolis. They're collecting rosin from the trees to make the propolis. Go ahead.
Sorry, I've never heard of propolis. What is that?
So propolis is the bee's glue. All it is rosin from the trees. What they do is they use it to seal up different open spots in their hive to protect themselves. I've actually seen them do it in a hole, a cavity hole of a tree to protect them from rain. Okay, so they'll use that. They'll actually use that to close up. Anybody know what that is? It's a beetle trap. Yeah, it was a beetle trap. So what they'll do is they'll corner them beetles and get them into there, and they'll start closing these holes up, and that's how they trap them out. Okay. So any other ideas on how we can make money with bees?
Oh, you can rent them out to farmers.
You can rent them out. Not very much money. Usually about $25 for a month doing blueberries down in Florida. It's
You
not
could
very
sell
much.
queens.
You can sell the queens there. Now you're hitting some money. What else can you sell? How much you think you can buy a bee for? A queen bee? Well, you know.
Well-
Don't you know? Anybody else? How much you think you buy a queen for? Bottom of the line.
Depends on if she's
$5
made
or
out of
$10.
Nope. $30.
30 to 50 or more.
Or 100.
30 to about $100.
Yes.
Well, it
Depending on
depends
the genetics is what matters. Because there's bees now that are more hygienic, that are less likely to have mite issues. There are queens out there that are a little more hardy for different climates. There's, meaning I can buy that same bee, like an Italian bee up here, and I can buy the same bee, Italian bee down in Florida. Well, because of the amount of time that they are up and active in Florida, they don't last as long. But I might get 2 or 3 years out of a queen bee Italian up here. I'm only gonna get a season out of it down there in Florida, understand? So the means of profit for bees, yes, I can sell my bees. I could do my honey, propolis. I can actually sell the bees, which I make more profit out of selling the bees. Whether they're a package, I can sell a nuke, which is this box. Huh? That's the nuke. You can also do mentoring as well. And you can do bee removal. I make a lot more money doing a bee removal because who's going to touch a bunch of bees that don't have the equipment to do it? Okay?
So another thing that you can use bees for is the medicinal benefits. Now he touched on that a little bit. A lot of people will swear by a tablespoon of honey every day will definitely help you with your seasonal allergies because you're taking in bits of pollen in your honey that's from your local bees. Now you can't buy honey from another area that's going to help you with your local allergies. You need to buy your local honey for that. So you can also do your, I can't say my notes here. Honey is used in a lot of medicinal remedies. We have some honey garlic that is fermenting on the shelf that we use. You can also use pollen and the propolis. Now I'm going to tell you a few of these things we have not tried, nor do I know that I would endorse, but these are reasons you might want bees, is they actually do what's called bee sting therapy.
How many knew that?
Which is apitherapy, where they take a venom therapy and they actually sting you with live bees. Now this one is actually kind of cool, I think. This is called vibroacoustics.
How do you get that?
Make them zoom by your ear.
How do you get the vibroacoustics?
I saw one on Facebook the other day. They have like a little building on top of bees, and you can sleep there, and the vibrations they make buzzing.
So it's said that beekeepers, because we deal with the bees, we are within that zone. We are actually receiving those.
Now I thought that was cool. Those are the only ones I had on my list. All right, so basics of beekeeping.
Mentorship. I would say, number one, if you haven't got into beekeeping, find a mentor. If you can't find a mentor, reach out to different groups and let them hook you up. I'm also involved with Hives for Heroes. It's very difficult. They're always looking for mentors. They always have a bunch of people that want to do it, but they're always looking for mentors. Problem is linking up to. They talked about having 13 different classes going on, trying to get them to match up. It's a hard thing to try to meet up with somebody else's schedule to get them taught and trained on why to get into beekeeping.
Now, beekeeping is a very expensive hobby. I'm not gonna lie, it's very expensive, and you're not gonna pay for it in honey, I'll tell you that. But a mentor, for the cost of a bee suit, you can get your hands dirty and you can find out if you really like bees. Now, we've had bees for
About 5 years.
5 years. I still get nervous around the bees. They start going crazy, I get nervous, and he knows if I've walked away, I'm walking away right now because they know I'm nervous.
If I get nervous, what you think? What's happening?
Something's in your seat. Something's in your seat.
My pants.
That's right.
Believe me, if that don't send chills up.
Now, how do you get your bees? So there's a couple of different ways you can get bees, and you can go to your local beekeeping store. We do have a Man Lake store here in Clarkson, Kentucky, where you can go and you can buy bees. And they come in a couple different ways. You can buy a nook. Now, a nook is a real colony, usually 5 frames of bees with a laying queen, and the bees are already a family. They have accepted that queen, she's laying eggs, they're nurturing, they're growing. This is a proven colony. Now, a nook will cost you about $200 to buy a nook of bees. Now, another way that you can buy bees is called a package. And a package is basically a package of bees. You're going to get 3 pounds of bees. Anyone have any idea how many bees are in 3 pounds? 10,000, yes. 10 to 12,000 bees is in a package of bees. Now, it does come with a queen. The difference between a nook and a package is they're not a family. They had those bees over here, and they had this queen over here in their queen rearing farm, and they picked a queen off the shelf, they picked up a package of bees, they put them together, and they shipped them out to you. They've never met, they don't know each other, and we don't know if they like her yet. Because one of the big misconceptions about queens is the queen rules the hive, right? Does everyone think that? She does not. She definitely has the most important job of laying eggs and reproducing and creating more bees. It takes a lot of bees to create a hive, but the workers run the hive. If she's not doing a good job, they're going to replace her, and they will go as far as killing her if they need to. And they also are the ones that control your swarming, and all of that is your worker bees. Now, the other way you can get bees is you can catch a swarm. Now, swarms are free, kind of. You do need a swarm trap, and you need some bait. Swarm Commander is something you could use for bait, or you can use lemongrass essential oil. Now, you can definitely catch bees. It takes a lot of patience. So you have to decide if you have more money or more patience on how you want to get your bees. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Lemongrass oil?
Yes.
Make you think.
That kills mosquitoes, right?
It attracts
Makes you
bees.
think, huh?
And I made a soap recently with lemongrass oil, and I got a little panicky after I did that. But I tested it, and I did not get stung. So, one note here I want to say is Philip also recommends that you start with 2 hives of bees.
Anybody know why?
So you can compare them.
Got something to compare it to. And we'll go into a little more detail on that one.
In our equipment.
All right.
You're up.
So, equipment that you're going to need for beekeeping. Obviously, your basic setup. Obviously, we need a jacket of some sort, right? With a full mask.
Hives.
Oh, you want to do hives first?
Yes, do hives.
Okay, so we're going to do hives first. Fingers on it. Should have been bold print. I had my glasses on, huh? So our Langstroth hives. About $165 painted. 10 frames assembled. $130 unassembled, unpainted.
Now that's your starter. That's just one box.
Right. This is your deep frame box that you'd actually get. Obviously the screen to be added on. It also comes with a telescoping lid. Covers right down on the top. not a migratory lid. A migratory lid is just a flat piece of board with a hole drilled in the top, sets on top. There's a lot of cons against that. Traps the beetles in there a lot easier. They can have a place to hide. Horizontal top bar hive. Mike here has got one of those hives, and I am thinking about migrating that way. More for my established colonies, because when I need to get in there, how many pounds do you think this one box, only with the lid, full of bees and honey, resources, how much do you think it weighs?
Over 50?
About 75 pounds. I have some people that do double deeps, but the next deep is separated with a queen excluder, and that one's slap full of honey. That's the same size box, but on top. There's no difference other than the bottom and the top to it. And it's a different kind of frame. That box, they're yanking off 75 pounds each time. How much do you think the medium box weighs? Anybody? That's 50 pounds slap full of honey. That's heavy. So we found out that we harvested 2 of these medium boxes plus 2 frames. How many gallons of honey do you think I pulled? Anybody? Guess? 7.5 gallons. 7.5 gallons. Just out of 2 boxes, basically. That's a lot.
And that was in Florida.
Yeah, they constantly.
We haven't got as much honey here.
I had
No.
a question I forgot to ask.
So the long bar hive, go ahead.
Royal jelly, they sell that too for medicine,
Oh,
right?
yes. Yeah, they're serving it over in Europe.
Yes.
Queen.
Because you were
eats it.
talking about medicine and making money, but could you do that yourself or not?
It's a very.
The royal
First, you
jelly,
need to have a market. Then you have to have the facility to produce it. So what do you need to produce it? Obviously, you need to have a turnaround queen needing to be done. That's a lot of catching. And when you look at any one hive, you might have 1 or 2 queen cells that they're actually producing that queen jelly in. So that's really small.
But all larvae eat royal jellies for the first 3 days.
Trying to capture that.
Yeah, it would
is
be
my
very
point.
hard to contain it.
Right.
I mean, we're talking dropperfuls.
Right. Now, that long bar hive, I was going with that is, those are some heavy hives. So if I want to get right in there and say, I need to know if that queen is doing her job, I want to go right to that spot. Because I know right where it's at. It's right in the middle of all those frames. So that long bar hive has really got some advantages to it.
And the other advantage about a long bar hive that I see, because I did a lot of research for today's presentation, they cost about $325 to purchase a long bar hive, and that's unassembled, unpainted. But once you start stacking these up, you're going to spend that much anyway. You might be able to do it slower. You could budget it out a little bit. But to do 2 deeps and 2 mediums, you're still looking at about $360 for a large hive like that. So in the end, you're still going to be spending the money on those. And I want to go back to one thing you said also, the royal jelly, in case anyone else does not know what that is. Royal jelly is something that bees create for food. And all bees eat royal jelly for the first 3 days of their lives. Now, queen bees eat royal jelly their entire life. That is their exclusive diet. We could talk a lot about queens, but I'm gonna stop right there. Okay.
There's another hive, that flow hive. There's been several of my friends, actually, that would sell equipment, got into the flow hive, and really deterred people from using it. There is some maintenance that goes along with it when it has to be cleaned, but you have to have a full operational colony in order to make that work. So yeah, you can go there, turn a knob, like you go to the faucet and turn on some water and get you some honey. But if you don't think you're gonna be bombarded with the bees, I mean, I can put it on my finger and they're gonna be all over me like stink. So there's a lot more maintenance with the flow hives, and they're not worth it with the maintenance when you gotta change out those actual cylinders. And basically all it does is they fill it with the honey and then they cap it off. Both on the inside and the outside is capped off. So when you go to turn that dial, it breaks that seal on one side like a knife, and it lets all the honey flow downward right down to your chute.
And it's a very expensive hive, over $600 to buy a flow hive.
So, protective equipment. I should have brought my jacket. I apologize. I actually had it on the side to be brought, didn't bring it. So as you can see in the picture, that's all the jacket I wear, and a hood. Now, the one on the left is I have now, it actually has a zipper across the front, which will allow me to open up my face. And the other one does not. The other gloves that I use, there's leather gloves. There's these little gloves here. Will they sting through it? Yes, they will. They will sting through the leather gloves as well. But I use the leather gloves for just get in, get out. These, I'm getting wax, I'm getting honey on them. I can tear them off, I can throw them away, no big deal. Some of the other stuff I have up on the table, hive tools, a lot of different designs. Depends on your preference and what you want to use. Something I don't go to the hive without. Take my hive tools with me. I take my marker with me. Always have the queen clip. You get into that hive, and you need to find out what best works for you and make sure that it functions, because if it doesn't close all the way, you just captured the queen to safely put her onto the side. And now, if you didn't close it, she just got out. Now, I don't ever take her off the box. I'll keep her in a corner of the box, and the other bees will actually tend to her, so they'll be covered. But I've actually had them, when closed completely like this, which I don't like these much, I like the other ones in plastic, they actually got another bee in there, and it wedged it open just enough, and the queen got out. And I watched it happen.
Now, does anyone know why we might want to put the queen in a queen cage?
So you don't accidentally kill her when you move frames?
Right.
Yes, or drop her and end up crawling around on the ground looking for her. Because if she goes into the wrong hive,
She'll
they
jump.
will kill her.
As soon as she goes into the doorway, if she can get into the doorway, the other colony will actually ball her, which is kill her. And it's not a pretty sight when you look. We use a smoker. The queen cages, when you receive a queen, if you buy just a queen from the local store or online, you're actually going to get it in a box similar to this. And it's actually going to be in a cage like this with a cork, like on the end, like a sugar cork. They'll actually have this thing plugged down in here so that she can't get out. They'll put a paper towel in there, they'll wet it, they'll put some honey in there, and it gets given to you from the store. You go home and you install it the next day or two, and then that's it. Now what you do is you take this and you actually wedge it between the frames, and they'll eat the core out. If they don't release her, you got to take her out. So there's some other things there. Another thing I like, my wife bought me, I don't know if I saw this or she saw this and brought it to my attention, but this thing is awesome. You stick this thing on your pocket, and as you're working, I'll use like a double shot. I'll clip one here, I'll clip one here, and I have both of them that I need. This thing is golden. I love this. However, it's not very easy to hit that back end and bump it when I want to crack open the corner of the hive to open it. So I use that one for that. And a lot of people, you watch them try to get their frames separated. I'll use that, crack it sideways, or I'll wedge it sideways that way, which that one does just as well. You got the J-hook on the end that'll actually help you lift it out. So there's a lot of different tools. Some people haven't seen them. They're smaller, they're a little shorter. Some just have a little spike. Little brooms, bees don't like that. I can't see very well. Guess what helps me out? Little jeweler goggles. See right down in there. Some of the things I want to see, I want to see eggs. I want to make sure that queen's doing her job. Beetle traps. Anybody know what the white thing is? Swiffer sheet. Unscented Swiffer sheet. Tear it in a little section about the size of a tissue, lay it on top of the hive, capture the beetles. It will capture the bees as well, but the benefit of it is more beetles than anything. Another beetle trap. Put a bait inside it, put it down at the bottom. They go in, the bees can't contact the poison, the beetles die off. The beetles are actually getting fed by the bees. And this one here is filled with the oil. Fill it up, only about a quarter off the bottom. The bees trap them in there, they get stuck, they die. You get this oil on the bees, they die too. Doing your mite checks. Alcohol. Okay? You put alcohol in here, vodka, it doesn't make a difference. Dump them out on a white sheet, test them out, make sure you've got mites or don't have mites.
So let's slow down there because people might not understand that. So mites is one of the pests that you can deal with in beekeeping, and when you do that, of course, the bees die. But varroa mites is one of the biggest things that you're going to deal with as a beekeeper that can kill your colony. So those checks are real important to make sure you don't have the bees or the mites. You can technically see mites, but they're very, very tiny, and I personally probably wouldn't see them without doing these kind of accounts.
And then one other thing, obviously, is a way to mark the queen. So we'll go ahead and capture her, transfer from the clip to here, go ahead and cage her, we can mark her. There's other ways to mark the queen too. I actually have pinned her down right on top of the hive, paint on her, and let her go. And we have different colors for different years. Do you have a hand up?
How do you know what the queen looks
Oh, she's much larger. Until you've looked at them enough and look at what a drone looks like, and 3 different bees. You have your queen, your drone, and your worker. Workers are all female, your drones are all male, and your queen's queen. So the queen can sting and sting and sting. When a worker stings, she's dead. Drones don't sting. Okay, so the drones are much larger, big buggy eyes, furry on the back. A queen, she's got a much longer thorax, much longer body. And when she's bred, she's much larger. Okay, she's not real thin and
looks
skinny.
fat.
I
So-
don't understand them why. What are you doing with that yellow thing?
Okay, so as Mike found out, it was very difficult to find the queen. So I, as a personal preference, and that's one thing about beekeeping, there's so many different things that you can do, and so many different ways you can do it, depending on where you're actually at. I like to mark my queen so I can
I'm
find
talking
it.
about the mite, the yellow thing there. I
That
don't
yellow
understand-
thing is a marker. I marked it
mean,
right on the
No,
back.
the
Oh,
mite thing.
mite.
I don't understand what you did with what.
Okay, so what you're doing is you're scooping up the nurse bees, which the nurse bees are the smallest bees closest to the frame. So you come on in here and you'd actually get as many bees as you possibly can. Take that out, you have alcohol in here. Drop them in, you put the cap on, you shake it up. If I can slide that in there evenly. You shake them up. What did I just do to the bees though? Okay, some people try to say sugar, powdered sugar. They try to do other means. There's traps you can put
The
on the bottom.
sugar knocks the bee, you dust
There's-
them with sugar and it knocks the mites off the bees,
Right.
is the theory behind it.
And it's not as accurate.
And
Most
so you
people
look
say.
at the bottom of the thing and the mites will show then?
You'll see the mites compared to the bees. You separate the bees, and you want less than 3%.
Okay, I see now.
Shoot.
Now, one of the things you've learned in just all this equipment is beekeeping is expensive. They do sell kits of bees, or kits of equipment, and this is where having a mentor is going to really help. If you have gone and worked with a mentor, you're going to find out what you really liked working with, like the different hive tools and the ones that he prefers over the other. You're going to learn that by actually working with a beekeeper and trying out the equipment. So just make sure that the kit you buy has what you want in it. I price them out, they're about 10% cheaper if you were to buy them in a kit than if you were to buy it all separate. Now, I did do a post on my blog about starting in beekeeping, and in general, you can spend about $500 to get started with one hive, and that's if you were to buy everything new, you were to buy everything assembled. If you wanted 2 hives, you're talking $1,000. Now, if you want to do it yourself, you can do it for about $400. Now, we got most of our equipment used.
Jackets are about $100, so there's some other protective things. You're going to be looking at, when people say, what are you going to spend on bees? Take a $1,000 bill and go ahead and light it on fire. That's about what you're going to burn just getting the bees.
So
Honestly.
say you wanted to get a starter kit or something like that, what would be, where you're in beekeeping, probably the best season to start beekeeping?
I would
I would
say
assume not that we-
start learning now,
Start learning now.
because you're going to prep for what's going to be coming next year. So you're going to learn how to go into the winter, because when you come into spring, nukes get started to be, actually they start taking deposits on them probably before January. So by March, April timeframe, if somebody hasn't already started to sell those nukes, they'll start going on sale. So you need to start learning way in advance to know what to expect. So if you work with somebody, like I do the Hives for Heroes, and their intent is after 2 years they walk away with a hive. But they got to put in the work. And technically, during the busy season, you should be in that hive every week. So that's a lot of work.
Also, make sure you get your equipment before you in the bees.
Yeah.
Which is not what we did. So how we got into beekeeping, he had done all the research. He had done all the stuff. I wish I would have posted this picture. I almost brought this
so
picture.
to kind of cut her off, obviously we had homestead plans. So with that, I wanted to do self-pollination. I'm like, I got to make sure I take care of myself. So I'm out doing my normal job, cutting down trees. So I trim it all up from the bottom and I start taking the tree down from the top. And what do you think I came across in the trunk? A bunch of bees, never saw them. It was October. They weren't even moving, didn't even know they were in a tree. Cut the thing off, threw them down, and I'm staring at a bowl of bees. I'm like, crap. swung the boom away, thinking I wasn't climbing that one day. Went down to the ground, asked the customer if she had anything. Her husband had an extra large sweatshirt. I put a shirt over my head, went back up, cut the rest of the tree down, threw it in the back of the trailer, and went home. I guess I'm starting beekeeping early.
Yeah, that's how we
So I felt bad. I was throw the bees away. I mean, now I just dehome them. I just took them, the queen away from all the rest of the colony that's going to die. And that's a lot of bees. I mean, a lot of bees. I mean, it ain't nothing to have 60,000 bees sitting in that box right there. Nothing. That ain't nothing.
Now your goal for your first year of beekeeping is just to produce healthy bees. Now everybody wants honey. No one can wait about the honey they're going to get. But the first year you probably won't get any honey at all. And that's because the bees are putting up honey for themselves. And you only get the extra.
Not won't. Shouldn't. Shouldn't take their honey. You want them to survive through the winter. You want them to advance to the next level. So be patient. Like I said, get with a mentor. I mean, if you work with them, you can walk away with honey from him. I mean, you're not going to need much anyway. But it's more beneficial for you to grow your colonies. And to elaborate a little more on that, getting started, you can start off with the 2 hives. Yes, to compare. So if one starts to drop, I mean, I looked at them right out my window. Literally, from here to that window, I was watching 14 colonies. I knew what my early risers were, late risers were. I knew which ones were foraging. I knew what they were doing, how they were flying, different characteristics. You just start to learn your bees more. That's your time to take the time to learn your bees and then let them grow up so you know what's right and what's wrong. And then when you get more, now you can steal from one to make up from the other and make them all balanced.
Well, that's really all we had. We did want to open up for more questions. If you had more questions about bees.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you said that the first year you shouldn't take any of the honey. After that, how much do you leave?
All right, good question. I know where you're going with that. So, the first year, you've got 5 frames that just came to you with a queen. Okay? You're going to take these 5 frames and you're actually going to plug them into that box. So this box actually has 5 more frames that it can fill in, unless you use an in-hive feeder, which takes up 2 frames. So with that, you're going to put the empty frames in there. There are some tricks. I like to do what's called checkerboard. So when you take them 5 frames, you stick them in there. I take my outside 2 frames and I move them out and I put 2 empties in between. That way it forces them to fill in the other pieces, okay? So it's gonna take them a little while to develop that. Once they develop that, you wait till they're 80% full, meaning they got the comb drawn out, but it's not full. If you don't leave them enough space, they're gonna think, we need to relocate, and they'll take the whole colony and leave. So when they're at 80%, you take another box and you put it on top. If you're going to go through the winter, your plan is to do 1 box, that's what they're going to leave with. You would put what's called a queen excluder in between, and this box on the top would then be filled with frames that they have to draw out. And this is drawn out comb, which is my actual honey frame. Okay? They're going to fill this up. And when they fill this up, and your flow, which a lot of education, you need to know when your flow is actually functioning. Usually about June, most of us pull in the hives unless we have a late season. We'll take this whole box right off. Take the queen excluder out, cap it back off. That's the box that goes to the winter. When the flow starts to come back in again, making sure you've treated for mites before then, have that little window closed, get ready, slap the box back on, and be ready to go again.
So even though we put the queen excluder in there and maybe that whole box is full of honey, if we have other bees that aren't doing good, we will take honey from that hive and we'll give it to them first.
Let me ask, anybody know what this is? So I left some of these things up here not to be pushed out here, but to ask questions with. So this is a feeder. This is 1-to-1 sugar water feeder. Those of you who are buying honey from a normal store, most of you are not getting actual honey. You're getting sugar water. Funny honey, okay? I don't like to feed funny honey unless they absolutely need the sugar water. I know it's a first-year colony. I just need them to grow up. That's all I need them to do. So I can put, what's your No, your medicine, the herbals, you know what I'm talking about? Can't think of the name. What is it? Nope. Nope, not propolis. What's oils?
Essential oils.
Essential oils. Some people use essential oils, I apologize. Essential oils within the water, okay, within, making you think now. Essential oils actually draw them to the actual water, okay? I don't like to use this. I will actually put these frames in the freezer, and I actually have some honey up here behind me so you can see what old honey and new honey looks like. And I know I was gonna bring the bees with you, but it's a little too hot to try to travel with them. So I'll actually take these frames and I'll stick them in the freezer, and I'll only draw what I want. And I'll leave some in there in case I have a colony that's struggling. I will give them back their honey. What better food to give them? Because this has a lot of medicinal properties for them too, just like us. So why give them funny honey, you know, sugar water? Why just give them this? Because that's how they'll get through the winter. And we also do sugar patties or sugar bricks and protein patties. What you got?
So what would happen if like a wasp gets into a beehive?
So wasps can be very detrimental to the bee colony because they can sting and sting and sting. They'll actually go after a bite and kill them.
Do you know how many times a bee can sting?
How many times does the bee sting you?
Do you know?
Once. Good job. And why? Because the
Because the
stinger comes out.
But
Awesome.
that wasp can sting over and over again.
So it'll kill the bees. So if we see wasps around, and we see them yellow and brown ones, we go out there like a fly swatter and go beating on them. So we'll make sure you do an inspection on your hives and make sure that you don't have any wasps, ants, other varmints. And I actually have some frames up here that have some mouse damage to them as well, so you can see what it actually looks like. And I put screen protectors on the field because you'll get mice that will come on up in here, and it stops them from going up in, and they'll take up residency right with the bees. And I don't know how they don't get stung and chased out, but if you force the colony to get stressed, the colony will just leave. The bees just give up and leave. So we are stewards to them. I try to let them do everything as natural as they possibly can, and I just try to help them along the way.
Now we did make a beehive inspection checklist. If you'd like to have this, it talks about all the things you should look for when you go in and inspect your beehives. And you're welcome. And that also has a little link to the blog.
Yes, ma'am.
If you want to look at that.
Just for clarification, so if you're in your first year of beekeeping, this is the first season with your beehives, and do you take the honey supers off in the fall?
You shouldn't have a honey super on in the first year.
So so if you're not harvesting,
If you're not harvesting, then you wouldn't have this in between. If you build this up and you don't plan on harvesting, you want to make sure you get through the season with 2 boxes, then you get to your 80%, you add your next box on, and it's actually going to have a black frame for your lower boxes and a clear cream frame for the super boxes because it's easier to see the eggs in a black frame background. So these would be in this box. That would be my deep and a medium to get through the winter.
So
If I didn't produce anything more than that, then I don't need a super.
so you wouldn't have a queen.
Nope, don't need it.
And
They do have them on the entrances too to restrict her from leaving, but
now in your bottom box, your bees are also putting honey in that bottom. So a good frame is going to have brood in the middle, and it's going to have honey along the outside. And all that honey belongs to the bees. The honey super, the queen can't get to, which will be solid honey, which we're going to show you guys frames of solid honey.
on your frames, there is different brood patterns. Your centers are going to look like that. On the outside to get the resources, and then outside of that actually is your honey. But you want to make sure you leave them with enough honey so that they can feed themselves.
So is it possible to have more than one bee?
Yes,
Yes.
it is possible.
We did a
Have
video
what?
pretty recently. We had a swarm move into our, he likes to think that our bees swarmed.
They went on vacation.
They went on vacation, they came back. But we found 2 queens in our hive when we did an inspection.
Won't one kill another,
No.
They
Well,
will.
one's on the way out, one's on the way in.
or? Okay.
Sometimes the main queen, didn't leave early enough, and she waited. Most of the time, they'll wait like the last 10 days or so, within the week, and then they'll leave. They'll swarm with part of the colony, maybe the whole colony. So
How long do bees live?
what is it,
Worker bees
6
live about 6 weeks.
6 weeks are the worker bees, but the queens can live a
5
couple of
years.
years, depends on how much they're working. So in Florida, they don't last very long because they work very hard. So I'm going to walk around as she talks a little bit and have any questions. So in my left hand is going to be, see the dark wax? Can you turn the lights on a little bit brighter? It'll be easier to see.
The one closest.
So on these frames, see how this one is darker? Okay, that's an older wax. This is probably earlier part of the season. Okay, this wax right here is a little bit lighter, and the newest actually is like a white color right on the top of it. It's like snowy almost. So this has been sitting in the box for a little while, and what I've been doing is letting them collect the resource, let them do their thing, and figure out where they're going to go with it. And then now I just went ahead and finally took all my honey from it. In beekeeping, there is a lot of tricks, and there's a lot of tricks that are open to your, how you want to play it. You can flip-flop boxes in the wintertime. You can have 2 boxes, and everybody's up in the top box at the end of the winter. They're wanting to stay warm. They're staying up there where the moisture is, and you might have to take that box off, put it on the bottom, take this box, put it on top, to flip-flop them back around and confuse them. You might have 2 deep boxes to get through the winter. Some people have harder winters. They need 2 deep boxes to get through because of the resources. The queen regulates the population. We go into a dearth, which is what we're in. She slows down population.
So a dearth is when there's not a honey flow. So that means that there's not nectar and pollen for the bees to collect. So it's a time of no food for the bees.
Right. So you might have to flip-flop frames. Take half from the top, half from the bottom, and flip-flop them. Confuse them to make them move. But there's a lot of tricks. But definitely at least 2 colonies. Or work with somebody that has bees and say, hey, I recommended to Mike, make yourself a nuke. Make yourself a nuke. Makes 3 or 4 frames. You make another queen and let her sit up on the side to get you out of a bind. Because he thought he had a queen that was not producing much. So it actually allows you to bail yourself out instead of go spend how much money, Mike, for a new queen?
About 30 bucks.
$30 for a new queen. If you do a split, you're waiting on a month. That queen can't do anything. And if it's now, she ain't gonna get bred. So you have to go buy another queen. So you see what I'm saying? So it can be very costly.
So different kinds of honey there.
Yeah,
Yep.
different colors.
Different seasons.
Seasons.
And do you think the bees go in the same direction every year? No. I can have these 2 colonies. Actually, this colony right here. This one will go that way, this one will go that way, and you'll come back with 2 different colors. It depends on what flowers
And these
are.
were different years. We keep honey from every year just so we can see it. So they were just different harvests
And
every year.
I have found that my Kentucky honey from last year, which was done around the time when poplar trees, which tends to be it was a sweeter honey than what my Florida honey actually was. So we actually have an app that you can pinpoint where you're at or standing, and it'll give you a 2-mile radius out, so you can mark where your hives are at, and it'll tell you exactly. And you can tell whose farmlands are, where they're generally. So if you know your bees are going in that direction, take a look and see who, because all of mine are going due north from where they're sitting right now. They have a flyway at 6 feet, and they're gone. So you can generally see what's being done. And then we have their winter honey coming up, or I should say pollen, and their nectar is going to be coming from like your soybeans, those. There's other plants and flowers that are out there, but if you don't have an abundance of them, and you can't plant enough flowers to supply any one colony. You can't. I mean, you can help, but you're not going to.
If the winter is a colder winter, do they need more honey to feed on? Or will
Bees
they
are
use
like
less?
bears. They slow way down.
Okay.
So they have the food in there, but they don't even move. 50 degrees, they're not even moving.
Okay.
So I try to insulate my colonies, but you don't have to necessarily do that. So
You mentioned soybeans, were the bees getting,
everything's getting pollinated unless it's self-pollinating.
I don't think bees get flowers.
Soybean has a bean.
Yeah.
Soybean has a bean.
It has a
Soybean
flower.
has a flower.
We have a field next to us that's soybean right now.
You're going to have flowers, so your bees will be visiting.
So we have soybean fields near our farm also.
Yeah.
And I did not want him to put the bees on that side of the property either because they spray up there. So I didn't want our bees on that property line.
And I was going to add on to that. So there's things that you you just can't do anything about. You saw how dark this honey is, or sorry, this comb is, this wax. And a lot of that is because they've been out there in different fields, bringing back, or people's yards, and bringing back pesticides. So eventually this stuff, and you can come feel it, it doesn't even feel like wax. I mean, it's so gummy, and I go melt this down and it's junk. I mean, I could take the fresh honey, or fresh wax, melt it down, and it melts, and I can smear it on my frames, and that stuff is junk. And I'm here another example, or we talk about pests, the mice, the wasps. Actually, if a frame's sitting in the shade or a hive goes dormant, you'll actually get the moths that will take up residency. And if you look at a couple of these, they start to take up residency. Now, I can take this whole frame just as it is. I can two things: stick it in the freezer, kill off all the larvae that's in there, then take that frame and stick it in the box. Now, these will clean it up.
The wax moth larvae.
Correct, that's the moths. Or I can take this frame and just drop it in a good colony, strong colony, and they'll clean it up and they'll run off the moths.
How many hives do you all have?
Well, right
We
now,
have operational 3 right now, and I've had 14.
Have you dealt with the colony collapse that's been happening to some people?
No, I've had colonies abscond, take off, and just completely leave. I've had a couple of them over this last winter just die of like starvation, not understanding why, but they didn't leave. They just, you could see the butts sticking out, and those are signs of just starvation. They had the food, don't know why.
Now, we moved here last September, but we actually brought bees here a year before that, so our bees lived here for a whole year before us, and those bees overwintered just fine, but this past winter, our bees did not
Yeah,
do as well.
and you'll have an up and down. So 1 year I insulated a little bit. This last year I did not. And like I said, you can't really do a whole
Insulate.
lot.
You say you insulate. How do you insulate?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So these people that are getting rid of their trampolines, there's that safety net that goes around there. I actually use that to wrap around trees and
On the
stuff.
outside?
They can't get through. But what I do is this right here, they can't get through this screen. But I have another piece that I put over that screen. I put a ratchet strap around it, pick up the whole colony, throw it in the car, and go.
And if you're traveling across states, you probably need to have a bee inspection before you take your bees.
In the Florida, yeah. But
Yes.
I also have a mosquito net that if I'm going to go out and retrieve a colony that is going to have, stragglers, I'll take and lay that out on the ground. I'll put the box down in there. I'll come back in the middle of the night, put my ratchet strap on, throw the mosquito net, just fold it up, go pick it up, put it in the back of my truck, and I leave. But I use a red light, not. If you use a white light, that's not going to be good for you. It's going to sting you pretty bad. What you got?
How do you know when bees don't want you near them?
Oh, they let you know.
They bump you. They'll actually come up and bump you, and they don't want you near it, and they get much louder. They have a tone about them. When they're queenless, you can hear that tone really loud. You know that they're queeners. They're real calm, cool. They have a really good queen. That take pet them. Oh, they're fuzzy. They're beating. Watch them walk on you.
We got a friend in Alabama, she has 6 or 7 hives. If she get the shot, a big box, I'll interested, and I'll build a nook, but I ain't got a bee.
Well, there are ways to get free bees, as we've shown, and you could always hit us up. I can give you tips and tricks. As far as beekeeping, if we give the class at the right time of year, we can actually just raffle off a nuke and give it away, but get people started in the right direction. I don't want to say this in a bad way, and please don't take it the wrong way, but doing that, I want to make sure that you're prepared. I'm not going to give you a pistol if I don't know if you know how to use it.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Because that could be pretty dangerous on your behalf. One, you better find out if you're allergic to bees.
Yes.
Because she now carries an EpiPen because she got stung and she looked like a Chinese woman.
It wasn't very fun. It wasn't very fun.
That's all. Anybody else have any more questions? Concerns?
The bee nook that Michael bought from Man Lake and brought home. When we went out there and I went with him, they're just very chill and laid back.
You can. That's
And
based
then
on the
we
queen.
went to the one that he caught with a swarm, and they're like, "Rrrr."
It's all about the queen. The queen sets the stage. if you have a real aggressive colony, be mean. You have to take the queen out. You pinch her.
They weren't mean, they were just so much louder and busier.
They all have their own personality and characteristics. And it's all based on the queen.
Different breeds of bees have different temperaments.
Yeah, Africanized bees are more down in Florida, and we were experimenting.
And there's no way to know what kind of queen you have if you catch a swarm.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
And there's no way. You ain't gonna money to send that thing in. Anyway, if you had a bad colony, usually you replace the queen. I've actually taken the queen out to include a frank, stuck her in another colony, let them reproduce another queen. I took that queen back out, stuck her back in. She's gonna jam up, straighten her butt right up, and they were fine. Don't know why, don't know how it worked. In the spring, you can do everything wrong, and everything worked out fine. In the fall, you can do everything right, and it don't work out for nothing. It don't matter. And it's very tough to breed in the fall. So after that prime time in the spring, forget it. Just buy a queen. That's why I say up here, prepare, make yourself another queen. Anything else? Otherwise, we're finished.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
You guys can come up and look at the equipment.
Oh, yeah.
What do you use in your smoker?
Oh, so inside the smoker, I'm just going to talk, y'all keep doing your thing, but I had a question about what we use inside the smoker. I actually will just take charcoal from my fire pit. It helps me start my smoker up a little bit. I don't use the pellets. I use what's given to me, pine needles, and some dry leaves. Make them as dry as you can.
I've been using corn stalks.
Corn stalks.
That's what's right by.
Just don't use anything that's treated with pesticide.
People can use dung.
Let me make that
Burlap
especially clear.
dung.
Burlap?
Burlap's fine, but it might have been treated.
If it's dry, it'll